Tales from the Riverbank, Episode 10, Snail. It's in the small things that we see the meaning of our lives. I was cycling to work this morning, peering through the Bordeaux fog, when I suddenly caught sight of a snail making its way across the cycle path. Right in the middle it was. I had to swerve to avoid it. I could quite easily have had an accident, given the slippery conditions. I'm quite tolerant normally, but there are some forms of behaviour I'm not prepared to put up with. I got off my bike and went back to give the snail a lesson in cycle path etiquette. It hadn't gone very far by the time I got back to the scene of the crime. I don't think I was quite expecting it to have made a run for it, but I thought at least it might have been worried into a bit of acceleration. Okay, I'm not built like a nightclub bouncer, but I think I can hold my own against a gastropod. And by the angry expression on my face, the snail must have known I meant business. But there seemed to be a complete absence of hurriedness on the part of Mr. Slimy when I bent down and started yelling. It was moving extraordinarily slowly, almost as slowly as the workmen who've been building the tramway at the side of the cycle path for the last 300 years. Slow but deliberate. It clearly had ambition, this snail, and by the look of intelligent determination that lit up its tiny features, it clearly had a plan too. I don't know where it thought it was going, but it was definitely going somewhere, and it really didn't have any energy to waste on angry cyclists. Every millimetre was a struggle of enormous magnitude, a triumph of perseverance over the combined forces of gravity, friction, and evolution gone berserk. At the sight of this little snail's monumental battle with Mother Nature, my attitude softened. Our first brief encounter forgotten, I found myself becoming supportive, partisan, willing him on, offering words of encouragement. Go on, I shouted. Had I been clearer on the rules regarding disqualification from a snail marathon, I might even have lent some assistance in the form of a light flick with my finger. But I didn't want to get the creature into trouble. I hung around for a while, observing the snail's barely perceptible incremental progress, weighed down as it was by the worldly possessions on its back. And as I stood there, watching him slowly slime his way out of sight over the grassy bank and to who knows what destiny, it occurred to me that it was maybe time for me to go too. To work, yes. There are few people who would believe the excuse, "Sorry I'm late, I was watching a snail." But I didn't just mean it was time to get on my bike and go and do a spot of teaching. I meant it was time to go home, back to England. Back to the 9 to 5 and the wet winters, back to the routine, to the houses that looked the same, to the alcohol-fueled last train home, back to the damp, cramped conditions, back to takeaways and the telly, back to being anonymous in the celebrity society. Like the snail, I realised it was time for us to load up our possessions once again and hit the road, Jacques. I saddled up and galloped off into the mist. Why was this? What, in the slow, determined movement of my new one-legged friend, had suddenly suggested that last orders had been called in the Café Français? It was simple, really. I was that snail. A little longer, maybe, and as my wife, but perhaps not my ex-wife, will attest to, not as slimy and a lot more attractive, but I was, allegorically speaking at least, that snail. And when I say I was that snail, I mean I used to be that snail when I lived in England, but not anymore. Here, in France, I'm a different kind of mollusk. In France, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm not struggling to get to the safety of the grassy bank. I'm not thinking, just another 8 hours and that'll be another centimetre of cycle path in the bag. Here, I'm just floating around, carried by the wind, at the mercy of the currents that sweep and caress the city of Bordeaux. It's bad enough being a snail, but a directionless snail is really beyond the upturned pail. It's no good. I can't spend my days idling any longer. The business of responsible, gainful employment hangs too heavy on my shoulders. I may have escaped the grind of the office, but not its grip on my psyche. I need the end-of-year accounts, even if they don't really add up to much. I need my to-do list, even if nothing really ever gets done. And that isn't all. The problem with being a foreign directionless snail around here is that I'm in danger of being run over by the juggernaut of French monoculturalism, being squashed flat by the vision that the world is divided into France and everywhere else. I have dreams about being trampled by people who all think the same thing, nightmares where I'm too slow to escape an out-of-control bus set on fire by gangs of young people from the suburbs. I might live in a shell, but it's better than living under a rock. Eventually, I make it to work, disturbed, but at some level, relieved. I chain my bike to the railings, remove my saddle. We don't want to have to cycle home without a seat again, do we? And head for the staff room. The bell's ringing, but I've just got time to check the lunch menu in the canteen as I go past. Oh no, escargot.